In the last section, we had a little bit of a discussion about where Mongo fits into a modern application stack. I want to specifically mention where it fits into the modern application stack because I do get a lot of questions about, hey, how do I connect my browser application or my mobile application directly to my Mongo database? And the answer is that, well, you don't really connect those directly to your database. You usually have a web server in between there. So hopefully that's a little bit more clear now. We're going to continue by talking a little bit about the fundamentals of Mongo. Mongo bases all of its data storage around two different faucets or two different ideas. First off, Mongo allows us to have multiple internal databases inside of a single Mongo instance. So a little bit ago, we installed Mongo onto our local development machine. And we were able to confirm using RoboMongo that, yep, a database does exist. We just made one, something's there. However, after we install Mongo, like that running process, that thing that we start up on our machine, we have the option to create multiple databases within this single Mongo instance. The purpose of this is to allow us to work on multiple different projects without having to dump all of our data. So the idea here is that maybe today I'm going to work on some project focused on working with some amount of data about states and books. And tomorrow I want to focus on a project where I'm working with movies and images. Rather than having to dump our entire database and all the data that's sitting in there, Mongo allows us to create multiple databases inside of one Mongo instance. It is important to note that we usually will not use multiple databases in a single application. This is much more about allowing us to develop on multiple applications without having to do a lot of fancy setup. The reason I mention this is because it introduces a little bit of confusing terminology. We refer to Mongo as our database, but we're also going to refer to each of these instances as databases as well. And so I'll try to be very clear about my terminology as I say or refer to database, but in general, you can assume that I'm talking about a distinct bucket for all the data in our application. Now back to what's sitting inside of this database, these two things right here, these two white boxes. Inside this diagram, I have reflected a collection of states and a collection of books. The collection is the core unit of what stores data inside of a Mongo database. We'll traditionally have one collection for each type of resource that we might need to make available in our application. So for example, if I'm making an app about states and books, I will have a collection of states and a collection of books. We will not mix any type of data inside of our collection. So in other words, it wouldn't really make any sense for me to take a state and put that state into my collection of books, right? It's a state, it's not a book, so I would not put it into my books collection. As such, we will usually, ahead of time, whenever we're developing any type of application, we'll try to picture in our heads, or we'll come up with some schema or design of the different types of data we'll need to store inside our app. So if I'm making an application where I want users to memorize a list of states, I would probably sit down ahead of time and think to myself, okay, well, I want to make an application that contains a list of states, therefore I should probably make a collection of states. In general, collections are a really great thing to think of and make some good solid design decisions ahead of time, rather than getting halfway through your development process and realizing, oh, well, I actually want a collection of counties rather than states. But I think you get the idea. We're going to continue in the next section and talk a little bit more about the core of Mongo and Mongoose, and then start diving directly into our first application. So let's take a quick break and then come back to this diagram. I'll see you in just a second.